Hello, this is Dr. Uche. How are you? I'm back here today reviewing a work of fiction. So, if you're new here, welcome, welcome. If you are watching this on YouTube, please do go ahead and hit subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you know when I upload new videos. I come here to review books. I'm reading works of fiction, but also to give tips and suggestions to help people write their biography, memoirs, autobiography, and the like. I really do believe in the power of stories to enrich our lives and also to share our common humanity. So, before we go ahead, I want to tell you that this is a work of fiction. I have not checked the facts and whether they actually did happen, but that's something I plan to do. Nonetheless, I didn't want that to keep me from reviewing, and it does shed light on some aspects of history, but what the book centers around, I don't really know if I don't really know so much about whether that happened or when and details. So I haven't looked into that. But I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about Take My Hand is the title of the book, Take My Hand by Dolen Perkins Valdez. And this book centers around a young nurse, civil, who is born to a doctor and a mother who is an artist, a painter in Alabama. Now, she became involved in a clinic, or she worked for a clinic that actually went into the community, predominantly underprivileged, impoverished families, and gave birth control to young daughters, young women in these communities. This was at a time when Depo-Provera seems like it was a pretty new thing at the time. So Depo-Provera is an injection that's given for birth control once every 3 months. So it was being given to children in this community. And the first question mark that came in Nurse Civil's head was that, hey, she noticed it was being given to a girl who hadn't even started menstruating. So, hey, you haven't started menstruating, you have no need for birth control because the reproductive system hasn't matured. So she started to ask questions and just started to see there were a lot of things, questionable things happening. Now, this book culminates in these two young girls from a very poor family, Black girls, getting sterilized, supposedly in a procedure for which their father and grandmother gave consent. Father and grandmother, both illiterate, who really couldn't read whatever document may have been given to them, but who barely managed to put their mark on it, thinking the girls were going to get the very same Depo-Provera shot, only to realize the girls were taken to a hospital, underwent surgical sterilization. Now, of the girls, one of them was typically developing, but the other was developmentally delayed and nonverbal. And so these girls, now sterilized, let back into the community. But you can imagine that this is when Civil really gets very, very upset about what is unfairly happening. And so she starts talking to a lot of people, and there's a lawsuit. You know, the clinic gets sued, but only for them to realize it's a much bigger problem. And in fact, they are suing the federal government for sterilization practices targeting underprivileged, often impoverished, often Black or people from underrepresented minorities. So this is what most of this book is about, is the lawsuit and the court case and how they eventually went through it, and relationships formed along the way between Civil, who now starts taking these girls almost like daughter figures. You know, she's so invested in their well-being, becomes very close to the family, their father included, the grandmother, and various widespread ramifications in her life, professional and personal, and how she ended up being a doctor. At the end of it all, she became a gynecologist and obstetrician. It was interesting. The book goes back and forth. It goes from current to past. So we talk a little bit about Dr. Civil, and then we go back to Nurse Civil, going through that issue, that case, that time with those girls. And then we come back into the future where the now Dr. Civil is talking about her life and how she is going around meeting a lot of people and seeking closure. She's seeking closure on things that happened in the past. So as I said, I have not had time to look into this particular issue. I would very much I'm very much looking forward to doing that. I haven't had the time, but I want to understand if there is historical basis for that. I haven't looked at any interviews of the author either, which I assume she probably talked about this issue and if there is a historical basis. The book does mention the Tuskegee, experiments, which we all know very well. Those in medicine, those not in medicine, we know very well about this horrific experiment whereby people were monitored, predominantly Black men monitored without treatment for syphilis, when in fact there was treatment available, but they were monitored to see the natural course of this disease. So this horrific, very, what's the word? I'm blanking out on a word I want to say. Something that shouldn't be done. I'm just losing my train of thought about a particular word that I wanted to use. But anyway, eventually there was a whistleblower and people got to know about this issue that was happening. So this is about Tuskegee, the experiment that we all know very well. So she talks a lot about this, as it were, federal sanctioned sterilization. She talks about it and then she sort of goes and talks about the Tuskegee issue. And so I don't know about this particular issue. I really do plan to look into it. But this is Take My Hand by Dolen Perkins Valdez. Again, I come here to review fiction. I believe this is predominantly fiction. And I don't know what part of it is historical fiction though. But this is what it's about the ramifications, widespread ramifications on the life, professional and personal, of this young nurse who became embroiled in this issue where two young girls were surgically sterilized without proper consent. How it sort of affected everything in the law case around that particular issue. And I hope you may consider reading it. It's a bit different from most things I've read. I don't do a lot of historical fiction, but it came up on my Audible feed and I was intrigued and I went for it, and I don't regret reading it because now I have something to look up to see. Obviously, we want to know history because we want to know what should not happen again, right? Till you know the past, you cannot do better in the future. So anyway, Take My Hand by Dolen Perkins Valdez. I hope you may consider reading it. And if you do, I'd love to hear what you think. Leave a comment. This is Dr. Uche, and I look forward to talking to you again when I come to review a book next time. Take care. Bye-bye.